It's now time for the Billy C. Show, part of the BillyCBoxing.com network.
And we're coming to you live from the Billy C. Studios in Lake George, New York. I'm Bill Calagione. It's time for the Billy C. Show. She-Show by the She-Show. Anyway, it's time for the Billy C. Show. Good morning, good day, good evening, whenever you're watching, whenever you're listening. I hope you're doing okay today. Today's show is being brought to us in part by my book, Tom Molyneux, From Bondage to Baddest Man on the Planet. It's available right now where all good books are sold. You can get a copy of this book right now while you're watching or listening to this show. Just visit BarnesandNoble.com or Amazon.com. Find out why I'm so adamant about getting Tom Molyneux's story told. Today's show is also being brought to us in part by our 24-hour, 7-day-a-week television channel. That's right. You can get it now on all the major streaming services. Just go to GinicoUSA.com and get all the information. It's pretty cool. We got all kinds of stuff broadcasting on there 24/7. All of our, of course, replays of this show, but all of our special events we've done over the last 15 years. So tune in, check it out, and drop me an email, Billy@TalkinBoxing, TalkinBoxing.com, and let me know what you think. We're going to talk about the Tyson Fury fight coming up a little bit later on the show. We got Dax Khan joining us, Alex Palelli, and the beautiful Emily Harney. So let's get started. Tyson Fury. And you know what? I'm so sick of hearing the linear champion of the world. I mean, come on, man. Come on. Yeah, maybe he's the linear champion, but have networks become so bad that they feel they can't promote a fight at all unless there's some kind of a title on? I mean, Tyson Fury in himself is a draw. I mean, does it really matter if he had a belt or not? I don't think so. I mean, personally, I don't think so. But in any event, it was kind of a tough fight for him. In my opinion, anyway. He got cut, and he retained his title with a unanimous decision, 116-112, 117-111, and one of the judges scored it 118-110. Tyson Fury improved to 29-0 with a draw with 20 knockouts. I tell you, I give Otto Wallin or however they were pronouncing it, a lot of credit. Joey Gamache, his trainer, they seem to have a good game plan, but he kind of got away from it, working the body, just touching Tyson Fury in the midsection. It seemed to work, and then they abandoned it. So I'm not sure what could have happened, but one thing is for sure, in my opinion, and a lot of people, including Alex Palelli, who will be coming up a little bit later on the show, feel that Tyson Fury is the best heavyweight out there. It may be hard to argue otherwise, but I will say this. To tell you the truth, his weak point is the chin. Now, you guys all know, anybody that's been listening to this show for any length of time knows that I'm not a huge fan of Deontay Wilder. But I will tell you this. In the rematch, which is tentatively scheduled for the winter, I'm not so sure Tyson Fury is going to survive it. I think Deontay Wilder in the first fight was trying to not be Deontay Wilder till the second half of that fight when he dropped Tyson Fury and ultimately dropped him for the count in the final round. But I don't think he's going to do that this time. I think he's going to come right out and attack Tyson Fury, and I think Tyson Fury is going to be in trouble. His defensive skills were not on display last night against Otto Wallin. There's no question about that. I mean, all you have to do is look at his face. I mean, he got pummeled. The one thing I will say, that was a pretty dirty tactic by Otto Wallin to rub his thumb into that cut. I mean, yeah, we all know that when a fighter gets a cut, and especially if it's caused by a punch, that the best thing to do is work that cut and hope for a stoppage. And obviously that was the plan. The problem was, it was at the end of the round, I believe, or during a break, and he did it, and it wasn't nonchalant. I mean, he could have got, he could have got disqualified right there. I mean, really, he could have. But I was impressed with Wallin. I thought he came to fight, and I thought he put on a good show. They were doing their best to promote Tyson Fury on the broadcast, and I kind of like the team. There's no question about it. Joe Tessitore is really good, and so is Timothy Bradley. I've never been a fan of Andre Ward at all, but they weren't, at least during the main event, they weren't as bowing to him as they have been in the past. But I like the team in terms of their knowledge. Not so crazy about the way they talk. I mean, they were saying, first of all, the linear champion. Second of all, Joe Tessitore made reference to how powerful Tyson Fury is. He's not. I mean, first of all, let me make this clear. I'm a big Tyson Fury fan. I have been for a long time. I had one of our listeners turn me on to him, I believe in his second or third pro fight, and I've been watching every fight since. So I've been a Tyson Fury fan. Don't get me wrong. But the biggest, first of all, the thing I said was his big weakness way back when he first started was he had a tendency to throw his jab upward. He seemed to have tightened that up a bit. And his boxing skill, I mean, come on, nobody can really question that. But his weakness was his punching power and his chin. His punching power for a guy his size. I mean, you get nailed by a solid shot from Tyson Fury, and you should be waking up a week later. I mean, come on. And that's not the case. He does not destroy people. And Joe Tessitore was alluding to the fact that he had one-punch knockout power, which Deontay Wilder has one-punch knockout power. Anthony Joshua, one-punch knockout power. Klitschko, both Klitschko brothers, Mike Tyson, etc., one-punch knockout power. Tyson Fury, not so much. And he's been hurt by much smaller guys. I mean, Steve USS Cunningham, listen, from the time that he fought him, and Cunningham had him in all kinds of trouble with uppercuts that night, I knew that, if he faced a heavy-handed puncher, that he was going to have trouble. And he did hit the deck against Deontay. But he got up. So, I mean, it is what it is. Could he have taken Wallin a little light? All the pre-fight stuff that came up to, leading up to the fight itself would indicate that he didn't. But the performance, you have to say to yourself, was he having an off night, or was this kid giving him trouble? Interesting game plan from Joey Gamache. Make Tyson Fury think. When I hate to keep comparing him to the Deontay Wilder fight, but that seems to be the fight to compare him to. He didn't have to think. He knew what he was getting with Wilder. Bombs away. I mean, that's the way Deontay Wilder fights. But he did have to think against Otto Wallin. I wonder if Deontay has the skill, which has been my personal biggest knock on Deontay, is that he does not possess a boxing skill. But I wonder if he has the skill set or close to it to mix it up a little bit against Fury in the rematch, ultimately giving us a better fight. Time will tell. But nonetheless, I think, a lot of times when young fighters get an opportunity like Otto Wallin did last night, I think his stock went up. Tyson Fury, I'm not saying his stock went down, but that cut was severe. They worked on it for most of the fight, and those kinds of cuts don't heal 100%. he will always have that weak skin there. And considering it was from a punch, that's going to reoccur down the line. So we'll see what happens with that. The co-main event in the junior featherweight division, Emmanuel Navarrete improved to 29-1 with 25 knockouts. Fighting in about a month, beat and stopped Juan Miguel Elorde. It was 26 seconds into the fourth round when the end came. How do you not love this fight? I mean, you'll get people that, claim they're, that was just a brawl. It wasn't a display of skill, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, how do you not love a fight like that? I'm sorry. It was extremely entertaining, and I loved every minute of it. So having a hard time speaking today. You know what it is? I'll tell you what happened. Yesterday, I was involved in a fishing tournament. I like to go fishing and stuff, and I was involved with a fishing tournament, and I caught a nice sized bass. And I've been fishing for a long time, 50 years. I mean, it started out as a kid. And I'm a pretty good judge of the size fish. I mean, a lot of people always, you know how fish stories are. Oh, it was monster, it was this and that. I'm a pretty good judge of how big the fish are, especially in the lake that you're fishing in. And I know that, this tournament was in Lake George, and I know what a monster-sized largemouth bass is in that lake. And if you catch a 5-pounder, that's a pretty big bass. If you catch a 6-pounder, I mean, you got a monster. Now, down south, I mean, they throw them back. They're catching 10 and 12-pound bass. But nonetheless, I caught two of them that were, in my opinion, at least 4 pounds. And the one seemed a little bigger, so I entered him in the contest, And we get to the weigh station. And I'm one of these guys, I don't eat fish, I try to, but, I'm not crazy about it. And I like to throw them back. I catch and release. So I was concerned that, this fish wasn't going to make it. I had a live well in my boat and everything. And anyway, I bring him to the weigh-in, and the guy goes 2.92. I went, what? And even the other guy with him goes, well, that can't be right. We're talking about, you can put your fist in his mouth, and he's going, oh, let's try it again. And the winds were vicious. It was like a tornado, right? And he's going, 2.92. And I'm like, you know what? I feel more concerned saving this fish's life, and I just grabbed him and released him, and he lived. And then it just irked me all day long, I'm like, I know that fish was more than that, And later on, my son-in-law, who actually was in the tournament with me, went and was at the weigh station again with a buddy of his, and they were going, "Oh yeah, we're having all kinds of trouble with this scale this morning, and now it's all accurate and stuff." I'm saying, "Well, what happens? I get the shaft, But anyway, back to boxing. Jaime Mugaya improved to 34-0 with 27 knockouts when he destroyed his opponent, Patrick Alate, it was actually the corner stopped it officially at 2 minutes and 18 seconds of the fourth round. What I liked about this fight was that Mugaya seemed, he always has that feel out round, but in this fight he seemed to step on the gas a lot sooner. I still question his. And I hate to say it because he's such an exciting fighter, and I like him. But his boxing skill, he's one of these guys that just I crush you, I will come and crush you, but more with a Spanish accent. But he won the fight. He's a monster 154-pounder. And he, after the fight, was saying that he most likely is going to move up to 160, but he improves to 34-0 with 27 knockouts. Alate drops to 40-4 with 30 knockouts. Some other fights, and Dax Khan, who will be joining us here in a little while, was ringside for this one in the Catskills last night. Carlos Takam improved to 37 wins, 5 losses, and a draw when he won a unanimous decision. I'm waiting to see what Dax says. And by the way, we are, as you know, we had some issues with the system here for several weeks, and we the camera shot that gets the phone when they call in, we have the camera on them. I don't know if it's going to work. I did not have a chance to test it because Dax was ringside for this fight. So there's a chance that you're going to be hearing the voices of the team rather than see their faces. So I apologize in advance, but next week you won't have that issue for sure. But Carlos Takam improved to 37-5-1 over Craig Lewis, who drops his fourth fight. He's 14-4-1. The way his judges scored it, two had at 99-91. One had at 96-94, so I'm curious to find out what Dax thought. But let me tell you something. Now, Joe DeGuardia and Star Boxing, they are, I know Joe, and he does a lot for boxing in the state of New York. But, it's so obvious what this guy does. I mean, he takes fighters like Carlos Takam, and he will basically get him a couple of wins against opponents just like Craig Lewis. And then next thing you know, Carlos Takam will be getting another shot at a world title. And that's, Star Boxing's goal. Very rarely do you see them take a young fighter and build him up and go, take him all the way to the top. They're more of a, recycle promotional company. And this whole card screams that. I mean, just so you know, in the super lightweight division, Anthony Lorano improved to 12-0 with 4 knockouts when he beat Brian Jones, who's 15-11. In the cruiserweight division, Richie, the Popeye the Sailor Man, Rivera improved to 13-0 when he beat Bumay Duffus, Israel Bumay Duffus, who drops to 19-6, and he struggled. Another fight in the welterweight division, Babacar Silla improved to 11-0 when he won a 6-round split decision over Jermaine Corley, who's 3-7, the son of Chop Chop Corley. When you have these fighters, and you could look at this in a couple of different ways. You could look at these opponents as journeyman fighters and tough veterans that could give a young fighter trouble. But when they do get trouble and they don't improve from it, it's not helping them. We'll get more on that from Dax a little bit later. One other thing I want to touch on real quickly before we take a quick break here is they made it official. Canelo Alvarez will be fighting Sergey Kovalev. Now, we talked about this after the fight. We did the post-fight a couple of weeks ago. And there was rumor that was going to be the fight. This whole fight, Kovalev chose to take his last fight instead of fighting Canelo last night. And, Canelo had his eyes set on Kovalev, especially at, light heavyweight division. And, they obviously got what they wanted here. This fight, in my opinion, is going to be decent. November 11th in Las Vegas. I knew it was going to be at the end of this year. I was thinking it was going to be the end of November, maybe even first week in December. But the timing is exactly what I had predicted a couple of weeks ago. You're going to see Canelo fight on Cinco de Mayo. He will be fighting on Cinco de Mayo. Who he fights, I don't know. Everybody wants to see the Triple G fight again, but I think he's leaving Triple G in the dust in terms of giving him the opportunity. It wasn't the fact that I think he's scared of Triple G because Triple G is almost close to getting Social Security at this point, but I just think that he doesn't want to give Triple G the opportunity to make the money. And Triple G is in a tough fight in his own right when he fights on October 5th against Deverenchenko. That fight is no layup fight for Triple G. I think it's a tough fight. But back to Canelo Kovalev, I like the fight. and I'll predict it right now. You guys, anybody listening to this show for a long time knows who Brooklyn Mike is, my man Brooklyn Mike. Miss him. He was part of the show for a while, and his schedule just tore him away. But Brooklyn Mike reached out to me when it was signed, sealed, and delivered and said, who do you like? Who's your early prediction? Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag. His early prediction is Kovalev. My early prediction is Canelo. I think Canelo's going to work the body, and Kovalev's getting stopped in this fight. Kovalev is doing, in my opinion, Sergey Kovalev is taking this fight for the check. He's making a ton of money, and that's going to be it. It's going to be the end of his career. This will be the last fight Sergey Kovalev has. He had an opportunity to walk out on top right now, but at the end of the day, it's hard to turn your back on the amount of money that he's going to make. Canelo, after the fight was signed, sealed, and delivered, said, this is the second phase of my career. It's continuing just as we've planned, and that's why we're continuing to make great fights to enter into the history books of boxing. That's also why I've decided to jump up not one but two weight classes against one of the most feared champions of recent years. Kovalev is a dangerous puncher, and he's naturally the bigger man, but that's the kind of challenges and the risks that I like to face. This is true. He is naturally the bigger man, but I'm telling you right now, and you're hearing it here, when the fight night comes, I guarantee you, aside from height, that Canelo will not look like the smaller fighter in this fight. Canelo is a big kid. All that talk about Triple G being too big and all of this stuff, that was all crock of you-know-what. Canelo Alvarez is a big guy, and he's not going to look smaller aside from height than Sergey Kovalev. Kovalev said, in order to be the best, you have to fight the best, and you have to beat the best. I've always tried to fight the toughest opponents in my division, but many have ducked me throughout my career. Canelo wanted to fight me. He wants to step up to a higher weight and challenge for my belt. I'll be ready on November 2nd. I look forward to this fight. I really do. I have high hopes for it, and we'll have to see what happens with this fight. And speaking of seeing what happens, when we take a break, we're going to see if we can get Dax's mug on camera. I won't know until I get him, so we'll have to wait a couple minutes for that. Again, if you're just tuning in, we started the show, and we will continue with Dax and Alex and Emily talking about the Tyson Fury win over Otto Wallin. What does it do long term for Tyson Fury? Well, I think this was just a step for him. I think it was a lot tougher of a fight than he thought. I thought he was thinking it was going to be another Tom Schwartz type of a fight, but it wasn't. I think that cut he sustained will reoccur. He hadn't had a cut in a long time. I forget when they said. I think 2012. But you watch. This is going to come back and haunt him. Nonetheless, a win's a win. And he got out of there with a win. 29-0 right now with a draw, 20 knockouts. Now it's up to Deontay Wilder to do his part and beat Luis Ortiz, who's I think he's about to turn 60, but we'll see. But should Deontay Wilder get past Luis Ortiz, then the Tyson Fury-Deontay Wilder rematch will take place. I believe they're going to do it in January or February, so it'll be early 2020. Listen, I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, we're scheduled to have Dax Khan join us, so don't go anywhere.
Billy C will be right back.
Have osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor and handle all of your Medicare or insurance paperwork. Best of all, your prescription is shipped directly to your home for free. Will you qualify for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knee or for a topical pain relief ointment covered by Medicare or private insurance at little or no cost to you?
Find out for free by calling the Back and Knee Pain Center at 1-800-604-1072. That's 1-800-604-1072, 1-800-604-1072.
Medical alarms for people who fall or have medical emergencies. You never think you'll need one until you do.
Do you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees? If you have osteoarthritis in one or both knees, are you on Medicare, Obamacare, or other health insurance? If you answered yes, you may be eligible for a prescription strength solution for osteoarthritis of the knees, covered by Medicare at little to absolutely no cost to you. We also offer a prescription strength topical pain relief ointment that can be used for pain experienced on other areas of your body. Our experienced staff will work with your doctor.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks, like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to
BLECboxing.com now, or feel the wrath of the mighty mustache.
Oh, that hurts! Why are you doing that to my face? I hate you.
That's BLECboxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C Show. Glad you could be with us. And joining us right now, and I will be working on his camera during his segment here, is my man Dax Khan. What's up, Dax?
Morning. So we have audio.
Oh yeah, I can't talk to you when you have audio. I see your lips move, but I can't hear what you're saying. So why don't you start? I'm going to work on this.
I was saying nothing good, but anyway.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. That's why. Thank God for the mute button. But I want to start off with the Tyson Fury fight. What was your thoughts?
Well, first, you said something that makes a lot of sense about those titles, and a lot of people have been complaining, meaning fans, about just exactly what you said. How many times are we going to sit there and talk about this lineal title? Tyson Fury's a draw without that title. Why? Because everybody's talking about Tyson Fury constantly. He's the ultimate showman in the sport. He overcame that cut. It was a bad cut. The fact that he didn't let that cut deter him and he stayed on course, that speaks a lot for him, just like it did in the Deontay Wilder fight when he got up off that canvas twice. This isn't the first time Otto Wallin has done this. Otto Wallin has a history of cutting opponents. Matter of fact, on the undercard of the Alexander Usyk and Marius Briedis fight, I think he cut Nick Kisner on Claressa Shields and Christina Hammer card, and when he faced Adrian Gannat. Prior to that, he cut him. Fighter, he's a skilled fighter. He's not a known fighter. So I just think people expected less of Wallin and more of Fury. But Fury did what he's supposed to do. He dealt with it. He overcame it. He went out there and he won the fight. What more can we ask of him? And what's so critical on him?
That in some cases, those fights, it's like Wallin, his stock went up in that fight. I'm not so sure people can be critical of Tyson Fury. I was a little critical in terms of it kind of, even though in the build-up for the fight, it seemed like Tyson Fury was taking Wallin very seriously, but during the fight, it didn't seem so much. It seemed like Joey Gamash's game plan to make Tyson Fury think and get him out of his comfort zone seemed to work early on. Then Tyson Fury's skill set came in. How affected by the cut do you think Tyson Fury was?
To my knowledge, I don't think he was ever cut like that. I think he had a small cut early on in his career, but I don't think he ever had something to that magnitude. I mean, that was a pretty big cut. Possibly if Otto Wallin had that cut, they might have stopped that fight. But so again, he did what he's supposed to do. He overcame that. He fought through it. He won the fight comfortably. We have to expect that. If anything, like you stated, our Wallin's stock went up. It was a good fight. It just wasn't the opponent that people wanted. We don't always get what we want in boxing. You stated something else that made a lot of sense, too. Deontay Wilder is fighting a 63-year-old Luis Ortiz. Again, nobody's complaining about that, except everybody who's not a PBC fan.
Right, right. I mean, but I thought that I give Fury credit for fighting these young fighters, especially guys with power. You know, I mean, Wallin had him rocked. Is that going to affect him in the second fight with Tyson Fury? I mean, with Deontay Wilder.
And Fury was in great shape too, and I think that helped him out. I mean, leading up to the build-up, I think that's the first time I ever seen Tyson Fury sport some abs. As far as the opponent, if Tyson Fury just sits on the shelf, people are going to complain he's not fighting at all. He has to stay active, so this way when he goes in there against these other guys, he's sharp, he's able to deal with whatever comes at him. He's doing exactly what a fighter's supposed to do. God forbid he only fights once a year. No, wait, he's supposed to fight once a year against a name that's kind of past it, so we can marinate a fight against somebody else that just may never happen anyway.
Right.
You know, this is boxing, Bill. It's boxing. There's no pleasing anybody. Fury's doing what he's supposed to do. When they stop talking about him, that's when you know Tyson Fury in his career isn't going the way it's supposed to be.
It's just true. Do you think this fight will affect him in any way against Deontay Wilder?
I don't think so. If anything, I think Tyson Fury, because he is a cerebral fighter, is going to find a way to make sure that that cut isn't targeted. Because right now, of course, everybody's going to target that cut because Tyson Fury is really hard to land clean on.
Yeah, well, I tell you, Wallin was landing clean on him, it appeared, during that fight. In my opinion, it seemed anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he's not Pernell Whitaker. I'm saying, he's hard to, continuously land clean on. Wallin actually admitted after the fight that he was targeting that cut, and he did a little dirty boxing in there. He's rubbing the glove in it, things like that. So, that kind of made that cut a little bit worse.
Yeah, he could have found himself disqualified after that move. That's for sure. But all right, the co-main event. Did you get a chance to see that? I know we're going to talk about the fights that you were at, but did you get a chance to see the Emmanuel Navarrete fight?
Yes.
Now,
Love this kid.
Yeah, I mean, I can't stand when you start talking to people on social media and they, oh, that's not boxing. It's like, what are you talking about? I loved that fight, and credit to Juan Manuel Elordi, who came in and basically just did not want to change his own style because his style is a come-at-you type. And we were treated to a great 4-round fight, even though not quite 4 full rounds. But I thought it was entertaining. Your thoughts, please.
I mean, at first people thought Navarrete, maybe he was just the wrong style for Dog Bay. But, he comes back and he dominates Dog Bay in the rematch. And, he has that one loss. I forget how many fights ago that was. But in boxing, Bill, if a guy has one loss, all of a sudden they can't be that good, even if it's come early in their career. That's just the way boxing is. But Navarrete, in my opinion, he just keeps delivering. He's a genuine champion. He has defenses under his belt. And Elordi is, a legitimate fighter. People don't know him here, but he also has a brother, Juan Miguel, who's a solid fighter as well. Juan Martin, who's a solid fighter as well. So Navarrete, right now, in my opinion, it's time for him to fight maybe either Brandon Figueroa or Ray Vargas. Both of those would be great fights. Great styles that fit into his style, and that's something that, the fans would really enjoy, and I think that would decide, most likely, him against Ray Vargas would decide who the best in that division actually is, and I really don't think Navarrete is going to be able to make that limit much longer. I think he's going to end up moving up to featherweight. He's a big kid.
Yeah, he was an exciting fighter, and speaking of big kids moving up, Jaime Mugaya improved to 34-0. Took care of Patrick Alate. I didn't think anything different. I thought that he was going to be able to take care of business. Any thoughts on that fight?
Well, Mugaya is a guy, again, somebody, you like to watch because he's going to be destructive and he's going to go out there and he's going to put on a show, but he also gets hit a lot. Mugaya went in there and he did what he did. He did the same thing as we seen with Saddam Ali that really put him on the radar and won him that belt. But on the other hand, he gets hit so often and so easily. When he moves up to 160, he's not going to be able to do this because the guys at 160 really are just levels above these guys at 154 pounds. The question on Munguia is, do we have a fighter with some longevity? Can he evolve into a complete fighter? Because if he cannot, this kid is not going to be around for a long time. He's 22 now, but he won't see 25 as a top-tier fighter.
No, not with the style that he fights. And you know, like you've said, I mean, this is a guy that comes right at you, and after the first round or two, and then there's no defense. I mean, he's going to be a guy that takes a lot of punishment. Should he fight, a more talented fighter? I'm not, discrediting his level of opposition. But the truth of the matter is, they were talking like we were going to see a different version. I was expecting to see a guy that was going to box, and we saw the same Munguia.
Exactly. Here, little boxing 101. Despite how good of a chin a guy has, how many punches he can take flush, little by little, those punches chip away at him. Use a guy like Mike Alvarado, for example, or even a Ruslan Provakinov. They can take those punches. They're not going to go down, but little by little, and against guys that are much less caliber competition than them, they're more or less, they're breaking that mold, and then eventually when they step up against that elite caliber guy and they end up getting knocked out, then now all of a sudden they're easy pickings for anybody. Remember John the Beast Mugabe? Remember him after the Hagler fight, let's say, or even before the Hagler fight when he would take a lot of punches, but then after the Hagler fight, when he took that real beating, all of a sudden he became easy pickings. And that's what can happen to a 22-year-old, and that's why I mentioned longevity.
Well, what happened with John the Beast Mugabe was really his own self, because he was a guy that that had trouble making weight. I think that kind of had something to do with him.
And that adds into it. Munguia, a big kid. How hard is that for him to make 154 pounds? You even mentioned yourself that they're talking about moving up. So, wait, that on top of taking all those punches, Bill, it's a bad recipe.
No, you're right. You're right. I mean, you can't really argue that. That's for sure. But yeah, well, let's talk about the fight card you were at. I couldn't help but, and obviously I was not there, but I couldn't help but looking at all the opponents and said to myself, typical star boxing card, side A and B clearly defined, although some of the undercard fights seem to be pretty competitive. Tell us about Carlos Takam. It looks like he's going to get a couple of wins against the Craig Lewises of the division and get another shot. Is he going to be worth it? Were you impressed?
Well, you said something about star boxing, that they have a way of taking guys like Takam and putting him in against guys like Craig Lewis and getting him another title shot. Carlos Takam was supposed to fight Alexander Usyk. Then all of a sudden, 2 weeks after that came out, he signs with Star Boxing. So, Takam, he looked decent last night. He had a lot of spring in his steps. I'll give him that much. He looked a little bit slower. He's not going to go in there against the top-tier guys, but he's slightly above gatekeeper status. But, of course, he's not elite. He never really was up there with the truly elite. So I think Carlos Takam, he has maybe one, he get a few more wins like this, and then, he has himself one big fight left in him and one good payday left in him if Star Boxing allows it. We know exactly what they do to fighters and their paydays, and how they just somehow manage to continuously mess up big moments for fighters. But Carlos Takam has had those big moments, and maybe this is just Carlos Takam's way of just kind of like sailing out of the end of his career. He wants to go out on some wins instead of some losses, make a little bit more money, and then retire.
The scores, I couldn't wait to ask you. I mean, two judges saw it pretty much a shutout, 99-91. One judge had it a lot closer, 96-94. Was the fight close?
No. I mean, Craig Lewis, he was on the back foot all night. The best thing he was doing was, kind of avoiding that telegraph right hand at the Takam that came after the third round. But, that same judge did it in all the fights. With the Richie Rivera and Israel Doofus fight, that judge had it 97-93, while the other judges had it, 79-73, while the other judges had it, 80-72. And the same thing with the Anthony Lorano and Brian Jones fight. That judge had it 78-74, while the other judges had it 80-72. So I don't know what fight that judge was watching all night. That judge certainly wasn't watching what everybody else was.
Just getting back one last thing to Carlos Takam. If considering he does what I say Star Boxing has a tendency to do, he should take these kinds of fights and win them convincingly. Go after these guys to create more value. To do a 10-round fight against a Craig Lewis, no disrespect to Craig Lewis, it's not like he had a terrible record, but clearly not in the same class as Carlos. I mean, do you feel that he should be, blowing these guys out, that they're going to be feeding him?
Craig Lewis, to more kind of defend Carlos Takam, has a great chin. He's never been stopped. Prior to this, I don't believe he's ever been down. He's went the distance with some pretty good punchers. Junior Fa just barely got by him. Jermaine Franklin, beat him, but again, he gave Jermaine Franklin everything he wanted. So, this kid, is one of those guys, Bill, that just won't go down. There are those fighters that, are not that elite, but you know what? They just don't get knocked out, and that's why they continuously get this money. They get these fights, rather. They're more or less the paid opponents, as we call them. The professionals.
Canelo Alvarez, Sergey Kovalev, signed, sealed, and delivered November 2nd. We all talked about it and thought it was going to happen a couple of weeks ago. What's your initial thoughts on this fight?
My initial thoughts were,
what are they now?
What about Callum Smith and what about Dimitri Bivol? That's my initial thoughts. That was my thoughts when we discussed this in Vegas. What about Callum Smith and what about Dimitri Bivol? Why are you not going after the most dangerous and top guys in these divisions? Because you are the pound for pound best and you have all this. And this is no knock on Canelo, but I'm just saying, why is that not happening? Kovalev, this is, it's an intriguing fight. The bigger man, the hard puncher. Canelo's jumping up 2 weight classes. Canelo has a solid chin. Canelo, as we know, despite the 155-pound title reign, he's a pretty big guy. He walks around as a light heavyweight. So it's going to be interesting. Last night, Alex made a comment on social media about a fight against Andre Ward, if he came back, would be intriguing. And my reply to that was, no, it would be a one-sided whitewash for Canelo. Remember, Golden Boy, what they did was when they called out Kovalev, they also threw that call out to Andre Ward and said if he's willing. Matter of fact, Oscar De La Hoya said if he's brave enough to come out of retirement, Canelo will beat him too. Are they really overhyping Canelo?
You know what? They carefully select Canelo's opponents, and just like you said with Kovalev. Kovalev, of all the light heavyweights, is the most beatable for Canelo. As far as Andre Ward, Andre Ward found Sergey Kovalev's kryptonite, and Canelo's going to go for the same thing. They're going to work the body. That's why I don't think this is going to be such a competitive fight. I think Canelo's going to destroy Kovalev. Andre Ward against Canelo, yeah. I do think that would be an interesting fight, only because Andre Ward has been so successful and was able to walk out on top of his game. But the blueprint that Canelo is following, and again, like you, I'm not trying to disrespect Canelo, but let's be real. They're cherry picking, for no other choice of term. They're cherry picking specific people with belts in weight divisions that they know that they have a better than 90% chance of beating. And like you said, Dimitri Bivol, well, he's a dangerous guy. They're not going to want to fight a young, up-and-coming, strong. And Bivol, the thing about Bivol is that is a naturally better fight for us, the fans, because Bivol could fight at super middleweight. So he's a small light heavyweight. So they're trying to use the fact that Kovalev is a bigger guy to try to sell this fight, but the people in the know, just like you mentioned, Bivol's the challenge. He beats a guy like Bivol. Now people really have to give him the respect. There's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to say exactly what we're all thinking. Kovalev's, seen better days. I don't want to say washed up, but he's seen better days. He's got a severe weakness in hitting the body, and I think he's going for a cash out. That's my thoughts.
That might be it. I really don't know. Kovalev has not been the same since the second Ward fight, and then he certainly lost a lot of that after the knockout to Alvarez. So, yeah, you're right. And did you catch the comments on Friday from Demetrius Andrade? Not that I think Demetrius Andrade beats Canelo, but Demetrius Andrade more or less said everything that we just said, that Canelo's career has been carefully picked. He fights these named opponents towards the tail end of their career when he knows that they're very beatable, and that's what his career has been. That's what he did with Miguel Cotto, he mentioned specifically. Well, so is that exactly what happens? Is that exactly Canelo's game plan? Is that Golden Boy's game plan? You have to wonder. Speaking of Golden Boy, I got to get your opinions, Bill. What's with the new Golden Boy drama? Remember, Canelo was not happy with them with the IBF title situation. Now what happened with Ryan Garcia the other night?
All right, hold on. I was getting to that because we had a chance to meet and talk with him in Vegas. But just going back, listen, just to comment on your question / comment, they're not inventing this path. They're stealing this choice of path from Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather realized that he could, con a fan base, an era, into fighting guys that had decent resumes, good resumes, champions, but were at the end of their career. The last decade of Floyd's career was about that. You don't see him. All of a sudden, a guy like Floyd Mayweather is awfully quiet about the Pacquiao. Remember? If Pacquiao earns it, I'll give him a rematch. Well, he not only earned it, he made Floyd Mayweather go hide in a closet somewhere because there's no way that he would want to fight him now. Now they're talking about Manny Pacquiao fighting. Who did they say? He just beat Keith Thurman, and now they're talking about him fighting another top fighter, right?
Not Crawford.
Not was it Crawford?
That would be
no. But that's no. They were talking about him fighting. Oh God, I can't think of it. Another top fighter that they were in negotiations. Maybe the winner of Spence and Sean Porter. Anyway,
well, that could be. Could be.
Anyway, to answer your question, listen. I think Garcia. There's a clear. It's a clear indication of a guy believing his own press clippings. The fight that he was originally scheduled for fell out. If you recall, he was complaining that he thought he should be the main event, that he's a main event fighter. He was mad about the money. He wanted more money. They had a big spat. Next thing you know, he was the co-main event. They added another zero to his check, and his opponent drops out. And they, from what I heard, is they found a last-minute substitute in Petrov, and he wouldn't take the fight. He said it's in God's hands now. So I don't know.
What happened with what he's really mad about is that wasted training camp. And Golden Boy Promotions knew that Sparrow had a warrant. There was time for another replacement opponent. Garcia actually wanted Romero Duno, who fought last night on the Mungaya undercard. Golden Boy Promotions said no, he wasn't ready for Duno. But my point of that, Bill, is there's a lot of drama going on at Golden Boy Promotions with their biggest names.
There's no question about that. And I think, Golden Boy started out a couple of years ago, and actually, let's give credit where credit's due. When Richard Schaefer was involved, they started with big names, Oscar and Shane Mosley and B-Hop, but they were building their young fighters up on the undercard. So it seemed that they had planned for the day that when the graybeard, so to speak, retired, that they would have a new generation of talented fighters. Well, when Canelo became the golden boy, so to speak, of Golden Boy, it seemed Oscar kind of abandoned that approach. And then, of course, Richard Schaefer leaving, etc. And now, they don't have a chock full stable of young talent. They don't. And greed has been part of boxing since day one. Canelo, he's believing his own press clippings, believes he's the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world, wants everything his way. He gets pissed off at Oscar. Ryan Garcia, believing people around him, where I think he's jumping the gun a little bit. He really isn't that polished. I mean, yes, he's a sell. Yes, all the girls love him, etc., but he's not where he thinks he is. And I agree, the drama's building. And I don't think it's going to bode well for Golden Boy. They don't have anything to fall back on. And Oscar, some of his own decisions that he makes are not the greatest. He's more of a face, and he's great with media and stuff, but they need to work on the stable, man.
How much really, and I really don't know, maybe you know, how much really hands-on does Oscar have over at Golden Boy Promotions?
Aside from being the face and being the guy that is always there because he's a recognizable name and face, I don't think much. I don't think that he's showing fighters anything. If this was a guy that was, Bernard Hopkins should take on that role. Bernard Hopkins is a teacher. He likes to show fighters the way in terms of skill and stuff. And if Oscar's not going to do it, that's what these guys need. When you have names like Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins, they need to be involved with these fighters. They're not. These fighters are in today's world of boxing. Dax, you know more than anyone. In today's world, these young fighters already have an entourage. They already have a nutritionist and all of these people that are coming with them. And as a promoter, it's got to be really hard to be able to deal with all of that. Me as a former promoter, I've had a hard time dealing with fighters that come in and have their trainer that thinks they're the manager and thinks that they're the promoter and demanding this and demanding that. I couldn't imagine it when you have a young fighter that has 10, 12 fights and he's got an entourage, a team of 20 people around him. That's got to be hard to deal with.
Oh, absolutely, that is. But sometimes, in my opinion, if you would let one of these young fighters go in there against a guy that they're crying for, they're screaming for, even though they're overmatched, and let them take that loss, then more or less you're kind of seeing what you got there. Do we have a guy here who can be humble and say, you know what, I need to change, I need to do what I've been told by my promoters, by my managers, and buckle down, get rid of these entourage, and do what I'm supposed to do instead of being a celebrity, be a fighter, and then I'll advance my career, and being a celebrity can come later. And if they can't, then you know what? You don't have yourself a guy that's worth investing that long-term promotional money into, and so on and so forth, if that makes sense. Somebody in the chat room I'm seeing here mentions about Eddie Hearn. Eddie Hearn, again, there's a guy right there that is willing to just take every fighter from the U.S. and bring them overseas and, turn them into superstars, and he does them properly. Just to upset the apple cart, I am so sick and tired of Anthony Joshua at this point in time. He just recently blasted Eddie Hearn about flight tickets. Who hasn't Anthony Joshua blasted lately? He's sitting there, he called Eddie Hearn the crybaby penny pincher because Eddie Hearn books coach seats on the airplanes instead of first class seats, and the bathrooms are too small for Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua has bashed Lennox Lewis, he's bashed Tyson Fury, he's bashed everybody outside of Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua, why don't you just upgrade on your own? Eddie Hearn has made him filthy rich, and Eddie Hearn is a guy that has taken control and says, listen, just because you're making that money doesn't mean you have to spend that money constantly, because that's how you end up going broke. What's wrong here? And then, that's something like, I mentioned that because these young fighters with all these entourages, that's how they end up broke.
Well, you make an interesting point. Anthony Joshua should be worried about one person, and that's Andy Ruiz. But, the truth of the matter is, if a fighter really wants the guys they're crying for, and you're right, the promoter should give it to them. The difference with Eddie Hearn is that Eddie Hearn tries to make the good fights. He really does. Remember something. it's not only the promoter that makes the fight. It's the fighter and his team that accept the fight. I know how hard it was to find fighters that would fight people. You got a 6-0 guy, and you're putting him up against a 2-7, and they say, he's too tough. Both of those wins came by knockout. And it's like, huh? I mean, come on. It's they all have to play nice. Listen, one of the biggest problems, and I saw a post with Lou DiBella criticizing Joe Tessitore last night, and I agree with him about, they're introducing Tyson Fury and the linear champion of the world, Tyson Fury. It's like, wait a minute. And I've said this for years, Dax, and you could back me on it. The truth of the matter is the networks and the promoters, the promoters are not, removed from this statement I'm going to make. They're the ones that created all of this because they think that they can't promote an event without a champion. So that's what gave life to all of these sanctioning bodies. Because a promoter says, I'm not going to pay that much for a sanctioning fee, and then pops up another sanctioning fee. I'll tell you what, another sanctioning body. Well, I'll tell you what, you can fight for my belt, and we'll charge you half for the sanctioning fee. Okay, that's it. And then the fan who doesn't really know that much, that's just going to see a live event, you hear them talking in the crowds. I've heard it many times. Oh, it's for a title. It's for the championship. It's like, yeah, which one? I don't know. That belt. Oh, which belt? They carry it. They need an extra 10 guys to carry the belts in. Supply and demand. They're diluting the titles. They're diluting the champions, I should say. Everybody's got a belt, Dax. They shouldn't have been promoting that fight last night as a championship of the world type of a fight. I'm sorry, they shouldn't have.
There was 2 titles on the line last night at that card. The ABO title, which is something that I'm personally not familiar with. I've just seen it lately pop around on social media. So, the reason why I mention that is because you're right. They talked about how it was the world championship. What is the ABO world championship?
Oh, you mean Tyson Fury was fighting?
No, I'm talking about at that card that I was at last night. There was this ABO. There was 2 title fights on there that they announced as the World Championships, the ABO title. Have you ever heard of the ABO title?
I've heard the UBO, but no.
The ABO. That's what I'm saying. This is a new thing. I've seen it on social media a few times, a couple times on Facebook. I'm not familiar with them, but last night they actually announced Anthony Loreno and Richie Rivera both as world champions. Richie Rivera is the cruiserweight champion. Anthony Loreno is the super lightweight champion. They came into the ring holding those belts up high. I don't know what the sanction fee is, but it was clearly the selling point on that card was those title fights. They even have, the big C next to Anthony Loreno. It is that era, Bill, where a title seems to make the fighter, when it used to be, the fighter made the title. There was a discussion the other day on social media, and I was even having that discussion with J-Rock, Julian Williams, about the Canelo and Kovalev, if that's going to be historical compared to what Henry Armstrong did. This is a different era, yes, but with so many titles around and these lineal titles and these interim titles, it's not even close. Having 5 titles nowadays, winning 5 titles, it's great. That's an accomplishment. Of course, you can't take that away, but it's not like it used to be. Back when Armstrong was champion, he won titles in 2 different divisions in a year, and then 4 months later, he fought for a middleweight title, and then he gets a draw. He actually gave up a title at featherweight so he can concentrate on the welterweight title. He breaks the record, defends that more times than any time in history. But nowadays, if you have an interim title, and then you have an Azteca title, and then if you have yourself, a belt from Sears and Roebuck, all of a sudden, you're on the Hall of Fame ballot. It's just, the sport is just really, it's those titles that sell. I'm sounding like John Scully here, because John Scully, at least once a day, has a rant about the belts in boxing.
Well, he's right. And, here's the thing. Anybody that would compare what Henry Armstrong did just goes to prove how unknowledgeable that person is. When Henry Armstrong did it, first of all, there were only 8 weight classes. So to have multiple belts in multiple weight classes was a feat in itself. They weren't separated by a healthy trip to the bathroom. I mean, it didn't happen. And today to have all those belts, it doesn't mean, because then you have the argument of which belt has more value. Oh, well, if they have the WBC belt, everybody wants that. That's what Wilder does. Well, I have the most important belt. Tyson Fury. Well, I have the lineal championship. It sounds like the three bears with what kind of porridge they're eating. And then Andy Ruiz. Well, I have the most of the belts. So I mean, come on. But
the champion is supposed to make the title. But it's not like that anymore. Somebody in the chat room, they're mentioning about the YouTube belt. I'm thinking back to Andrew Hartley against, the ultimate troll, Charlie Zelenoff, when they fought. That was actually for the Trailer Park title. They actually had a belt, a Trailer Park title. It was an actual belt.
That belt was from Stacy Goodson. I mean, what a joke. I mean, but anyway, Dax, we got to take a break. I appreciate it. I promise next week we'll have your mug on and fixed with the camera shot. So look forward to replaying so you can send it all out. And we'll look forward to next week's show, brother.
All right, everybody. Enjoy your Sunday.
Take care. That's Dax Khan. You can check him out up on the website every single day. He's putting stuff up there. Listen, I'm going to take a short break. When I come back, Alex Palelli joins us. And he'll probably have a really beautiful set all set up that no one's going to see but me.
Billy C will be right back.
Broken air conditioning, $4,400. Failing refrigerator, $2,500. Don't let outrageous repair and replacement bills like these bust your budget. Get the First American Home Warranty Plan. And when a covered appliance or system breaks, we'll repair it or replace it for you.
We had a high-end dishwasher go kaput. They put it in a brand new dishwasher.
We have plans that cover air conditioning, most appliances, plus heating, plumbing.
Snacking has never been this exciting. At Graze.com, we combine wholesome ingredients with the flavors we all love to create over 100 exciting snacks. Like these. We'd love to send you a Graze sampler box for free. Just go to Graze.com, enter the code ENJOY36, and we'll mail your free box to your home or office. Join thousands of Grazers already in love with our exciting snacks. So come to Graze.com for your first box free.
Need relief from backaches and stiffness in your hips or down your legs? Then you need Dr. Ho's Back Relief Belt. The innovative technology works to support and decompress your spine. And now it's covered by Medicare.
Every patient with back pain should be wearing this belt.
Nothing gave me instant relief except for the Dr. Ho belt.
Feel good while standing, walking, driving, doing housework, and while laying down. And now Dr. Ho's patented belt is available at our best price ever. It's even covered by Medicare. Order now and get the easy-to-use hand pump and back rehabilitation DVD free.
Similar belts can cost you almost $1,000, but my belts won't cost you $500, not $300, not even $200. I will give you my special TV price.
And remember, Dr. Ho's belt is covered by Medicare.
If you know a friend or family member that suffers with pain, get them my system today. Help them live with less pain, be more active, and get back to doing the things they love. Give them the gift of health.
Listen to this important message. If you owe money to the IRS, you will want to hear this. Penalties and interest compound daily on your back taxes, putting you under a mountain of debt. Tax 10,000 has years of experience connecting people with tax resolution specialists. Working through the IRS Fresh Start program, they will handle all the necessary forms, and if you qualify, you may end up saving thousands of dollars. Call Tax 10,000 at 800-773-4604.
Endless pools are an incredible alternative to traditional pools, making it easy and inexpensive to swim at home. Exercise year-round against a smooth current set to your desired pace and temperature. With our new underwater treadmill, you can walk or run without stressing your joints. Endless pools are simple to install and even simpler to maintain. The water stays crystal clear with almost no chlorine. Call for your free idea kit and experience the freedom of swimming at home.
depending upon which league you join. You got to check this out, man. www.kofantasyboxing.com. Join it today. Again, www.kofantasyboxing.com, and tell them Billy C sent ya.
The one. Now back to Talkin' Boxing with Billy C., the only radio host man enough to take a punch from Mike Tyson.
Wait a minute, man. Hold on there. Jeremy, man, I need you to take this one, all right?
Wait, what? No way. I can't do this.
Need I remind you I'm Billy C., damn it? Now put on that mustache and get in there.
Hey, look at me. I'm Billy C. Crap.
The undisputed heavyweight champion of Boxing Talk Radio. It's Talkin' Boxing with Billy C. Now back to Billy C. Interact with the show at BillyCBoxing.com.
And we're back. You're watching and listening to the Billy C. Show. Glad you could be with us. And joining us right now in voice only. And boy, he's got a beautiful set right now that I can see and you can't. My man, Alex Palelli. What's up, brother?
Yeah, I know. My lawyer is going to have to be contacting you because all my set design people, my makeup people,
well, that's the problem with you. I keep telling you to stop being a union shop, you know? I mean, you know, what the hell, man? You know, if you'd get normal people in there.
Place, I have the whole Bela Lugosi theme here, cobwebs, and a candelabra.
Well, wait a second. Leave the cobwebs out of it. You haven't paid the housekeeper. I mean, come on. That's not the Bela Lugosi. But we'll have it next week. I don't know what I had to contact him, and it's crazy. But first things first, not to be confused with fist things first. But Tyson Fury wins against Otto Wallin last night. Entertaining fight for sure. I think the cut really added some drama to that fight. But Dax felt that a lot of people were giving Tyson Fury a hard time. I think he kind of deserved it to a degree because either one of two things we witnessed. Either Otto was a lot better than everyone thought, or Tyson Fury may have taken his opponent a little light and then sprinkle in maybe it was reaction to the cut. How did you see the fight?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of all those things. I think the thing that's really interesting right now is this is really an exciting time for the heavyweight division, and it's interesting because I think each one of the guys is vulnerable, and that makes for interesting fights. Last night really was a wrinkle. That was almost an Andy Ruiz situation.
What did Joe Louis just nudge you?
Yeah. My cat took out Joe Louis.
Oh, too bad no one can see that. But he's got a big lifelike size of Joe Louis on his set. That the union's coming after me, and all of a sudden Louis is down. You know, but anyway,
Louis is down.
Yeah.
Pietro scores a knockout. Yeah. But no, the thing that was interesting is that the best laid plans of heavyweights are that's a division where anything can happen. There are no easy fights. I mean, Fury came to the ring thinking he was ready to conquer all Mexico. He came to the ring like Cortez, and he left like Carey. I mean, that was a bloodbath, man. That cut is going to upset. There's no way they're fighting February 22nd. I would think that he's going to need 6 weeks to fix it. So he's not sparring. So I don't know. I think that they didn't want to mention that, but I have a hard time believing that February 22nd will happen. The thing about it that I think, yeah, he underestimated him a little bit, and I think he kind of forgets he's not a power puncher.
Wait a minute. Joe Test said he was.
Yeah, see, I think that was a mistake.
That's the networks. That's the thing that bugs me. They build up the fighters. It's like, I know they're trying to sell. I know they invested a buku dollars in the guy, but let's at least call this. And Joe Tessitore, I love Joe Tessitore. I mean, if anybody out there has ever seen him call a football game, college football, I mean, there's no one better. He's good. It just goes to show you that when push comes to shove, who's writing the checks gets the priority. Because the truth of the matter is ESPN Plus invested a ton of money in Tyson Fury, and last night he was a power puncher.
Yeah, I mean all these commentators, at least the main guy there, they really are good at giving you the hard sell. But I think last night proved, I mean, that was another very difficult 12th round for Tyson Fury. Wallin had him hurt in that final round. I think that was a fight. I gave Wallin 3 rounds. You could easily say 4. That's a kind of tough fight because, a 7-5 fight is one of those fights that can go either way. So I do think that, an 8-4 fight, that's not what Tyson Fury expected. I think it is good that he got the 12 rounds in, and I think that he did show character in beating Wallin and dealing with the difficulty. I don't think he'll get hit that much against Wilder. These guys know who they're training for. So I think he'd be in better shape, even though I think physically he was in good shape. I think in terms of mindset against Wilder. But yeah, that fight probably took a lot out of him because he got hit a lot more than he expected, and that cut is like you mentioned. That cut is going to open up again. It was horrible.
I tell you something, and as far as Deontay Wilder is concerned, I'm not a fan of Deontay Wilder, and people know that, but he's got freakish punching power. I think the problem, and the reason why I'm not a fan, is because he doesn't display much else. He doesn't display footwork. There's no defensive skill, etc., etc., etc. Tyson Fury showed some vulnerability last night. He showed that, and Joey Gamash's game plan worked. They had Tyson Fury thinking. Against Deontay Wilder, he doesn't have to think. He knows what he's getting. He knows what he has to do. He knows that he's got to protect himself. He knows he's got to wait for the opening for the counter punch. He knows he's going to get the opening because of the wildness of Deontay Wilder's punches. If somehow Deontay Wilder can tighten up his game, if somehow Deontay Wilder can be more disciplined in that ring, I don't think the fight goes the distance because Deontay Wilder is going to be able to knock out Tyson Fury. If Otto Wallin, no disrespect, hurt him, and Steve U.S. Cunningham hurt him, and we almost saw him get dragged out in a stretcher against Deontay Wilder in the last one, and he clearly was hurt. I don't care what he says. And you make him think against a guy with an arsenal like Deontay Wilder. I'm not so sure. I mean, you've been saying all along that you like Tyson Fury in the rematch. I don't know. I don't really know, Alex, to be honest with you. I think the game plan of working that body, touching him. But now, again, it's easier for a shorter guy to be working the body and stuff. Maybe Deontay just can't because of his size. But I don't know. I think we saw some vulnerabilities in Tyson Fury. And, he's in against the wrong guy in Deontay Wilder because of his suspect chin.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure I would call it a suspect chin, but I think you're right. Anybody that Wilder hits on the chin is going to go. Fury has proven that he can get up.
How many times, though?
Right. Yeah, at some point that's going to run out. So I think it's possible that Wilder could knock him out. But no, I still think Fury will beat Wilder. I think he's got oodles more skill than Wilder does. And like you said, I think Wilder's main thing is power. And if he gets that to the target, sure, Fury could be in trouble. But I think that's the thing about Fury is he proved last time if they fought 7 days in a week, he would always just discombobulate Deontay Wilder. However, of course, I think it'll be interesting. That's why I want to see it again. But I think one of the things I did think of last night, you know me, I like politics, was all through when Trump was running for president, he kept, at all those campaign stops, he kept using the Rolling Stones song, "You Can't Always Get What You Want." And it always seems sort of like a strange choice because he was like, what's he saying? He's not what we want? But if you follow the rest of the song, the rest of the verse, it goes, but you get what you need. I think that's where we are right now with the heavyweight division, is that this is fun. This is, the last night was enjoyable. That was dramatic. I was very disappointed that all these guys went their different ways and hooked up with, different promotional apps, whatever, TV apps, that now we had to watch them in sort of placeholder fights. Well, because each one is vulnerable, the placeholder fights, Andy Ruiz and Otto Wallin, have become sort of interesting. So, I don't know. I think Deontay Wilder still has to get by Luis Ortiz.
I was just going to ask you, in lieu of the fact that, Andy Ruiz upsets the apple cart by beating Anthony Joshua. Deontay Wilder fights Tyson Fury in a great fight, and we're heading for a rematch, right? Tyson Fury fights Otto Wallin last night, gets severely cut, shows some potential for Wallin of upsetting the apple cart, similar to Andy Ruiz, and now Deontay Wilder's in the ring with pushing 60 Luis Ortiz, who did give him trouble in the first fight. And obviously Deontay Wilder is overlooking him for the rematch with Tyson Fury. Can Ortiz muster up a performance like an Otto Wallin or even an Andy Ruiz and really throw the heavyweight division? Because the truth of the matter is, even if Deontay loses, even if Tyson Fury lost last night, they stopped the fight on that cut, it doesn't really affect. This is the thing that that bothers me about a lot of the young, unknowledgeable fans. It doesn't ruin the division. It makes it better. This fact that Andy Ruiz beat Anthony Joshua, that's better for the sport. Everyone say, it exposed AJ. He's no good. He's this, he's that. No, that's better for the sport. And young fighters like Daniel Dubois, him coming up, and other young guns coming up. This is all better for them. I don't know. Can Ortiz muster up a performance to really challenge Deontay, or is he going through the motions?
That's a great question, especially at the advanced age of 61.
I know. I know.
I don't know. I mean, that's the question. Is nobody knows how old he is, but he's and I think that's what Wallin proved last night. Every heavyweight is dangerous. If they have it in their guts that they want this fight, that they want to win, they're not going to go quietly. And I think that's one of the things that ESPN Plus, that DAZN, that they're all kind of forgetting. That they're like, this is great now. We'll marinate that fight, those big matchups, and we'll have little fights and be teasers. Dominique Brazil. All these guys can be dangerous. That's the nature of heavyweight boxing.
Exactly.
And especially when you don't have a wrecking machine of a champion, and not one of these guys is a wrecking machine. Anything can happen, and that's good, because that, for the fan, that's awesome. The guys I was watching it with last night, we were cheering for Otto Wallin.
I know. You can't help it.
That's what's better than that, you know? So
You're
I don't know.
You're 100% right, and I agree. And people are going to be cheering for Luis Ortiz just to upset the apple cart. And out of all these promoters, marinate. I mean, the one promoter that's and I know Dax is a big fan, and I agree with him. Eddie Hearns, this is a guy that really wants the best fights, and he doesn't hide the fact. He signs you. When you sign on with Eddie, you know two things. One, you're going to make a lot of money. Well, you know three things. One, you're going to make a lot of money. Two, you're going to be in some tough fights. And three, you're going to be flying coach. I mean, that's what you're going to know with Eddie Hearn. You're flying coach, and you're going to have to squeeze into the bathroom. And especially if you're a heavyweight, it's going to be miserable. But if you're making $20+ million per fight, why not charter your own friggin' plane to the fight? I mean, that's always an option. Oh, I hate that I have to fly coach. Did you know that they only let me check in one bag? I had to pay $50 for the extra bag. What's this world coming to? I mean, come on, AJ, stop it.
I only got to bring one bag to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I know. Well, let's go ahead.
That Andy Ruiz actually may have brought Mexican special forces as his bodyguards to the Saudi Arabia press conference. I saw a little clip of Eddie Hearn somewhere on YouTube. And,
it makes sense, Alex, because they're certainly not busy at the border.
Well, I think if I was Andy Ruiz and I was a little nervous, and maybe he did meet with El Presidente, maybe he said, "Hey, you got a couple of guys." Couple of special forces guys, just tag along with me.
Well, he said, yeah. He said we have a lot of El Chapo's guys out of work now. So but Canelo Kovalev, we were talking about a couple weeks ago, and they signed, sealed, and delivered the fight, which incidentally marked down on your calendar. I'm working on that, but Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Kovalev. I like the fight, but I don't think it's going to be that competitive. I think Canelo is going to win the fight. I would love to see your comment come true, because I would love to see Andre Ward just get battered around, and I think Canelo could do it, to be honest with you, because he's not going to. I think Canelo can beat Ward, yes, and you know why? Because Ward, listen, Andre Ward. Yes, he had Kovalev's number, but I don't know. I don't know if he beats Canelo. I think Canelo is a strong, methodical fighter. If you give him the opportunity to work the body, he will. I think he learned a lot in the Floyd fight, not just how to cherry pick, but he did learn how to cut the ring off a little better. And I don't know if Andre Ward would be able to do much more than try to outbox him, and I don't think he could keep it up for 12 rounds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be fascinating. I think it has the potential to be dull, because they both are craftsmen and very cantankerous and thinking counterpunchers, or at least they can fight in that mode. But yeah, I would love it. I think because of the layoff, that would be interesting. It would make it more competitive. But I think I would give Ward the advantage. However, let's talk about the fight that did get made.
Wait a minute. You make one point, though. The reason why is if it was his next fight, if he came out of retirement and fought Canelo, if he got to fight 3 or 4 tune-up fights, I'd be singing a different tune.
Right, if it's like 1 tune-up or 2 tune-ups, I mean, it would be interesting. But in terms of Kovalev, I agree with what Dak's saying in terms of it being a cherry pick, and it feeling like it's sort of a cheap way to get a light heavyweight title. But when have we not seen that? That's the nature of this sport, is to optimize reward and minimize risk. And I think that is, in terms of what's going on at 175, Bivol would be a lot more dangerous than Kovalev at this stage. Kovalev, number one, has shown he does not like it to the guts.
And what does Canelo do the best?
Precisely.
Exactly.
Canelo is his body punching is brutal. So I think you're going to see Kovalev get folded in half at some point in the fight. And I think it is sort of one of those, it's sort of like when Roy Jones selected which heavyweight titleist he could defeat, and he beat John Ruiz. I don't think people knocked Roy Jones for that. I think that's pretty awesome. That I think you're right in the sense that it is sort of this De La Hoya, Floyd Mayweather sort of model of picking fights that be made into look more than they are, because it doesn't mean he's the best light heavyweight in the world if he beats Kovalev. But it does mean it's impressive. But like you said, we know Canelo probably walks around close to 200 pounds between fights anyway. So the fact that he's been fighting at junior middleweight for as long as he did was a weird thing, So I don't think and that's the other thing we don't know yet. What kind of crazy catchweight situation do they have? Does Kovalev have to weigh no more than like 180 the morning of the fight or something? So I wouldn't be surprised if there is some stuff like that, because it's Golden Boy and they're smart. But I think that, Canelo is like a Bobby Fischer mentally compared to Kovalev, and he's just going to take him apart.
Body shot's going to end the fight. There's no question about that in my mind. Kovalev's doing it for the check, and you make an interesting point, because at the end of the day, Canelo, and he made no qualms about it. He said it, that he wants to go in the history books, and at the end of the day, him beating Sergey Kovalev for Kovalev's title. Okay, it's not like they vacated a title. It's not a situation where, here's a title, these two guys are going to fight for it. Oh, I won this belt. He's going to take Kovalev's title. That will go in the history books, and Bivol's name will not. You won't see an asterisk, and well, he could have fought Bivol, but he didn't. You're not going to see that. So he's going to accomplish what he's setting out for. As far as Bivol goes, like I said to Dax earlier, it's a better fight for us, the fan, because Bivol could actually make super middleweight. It's a more fair fight against two people that are equal in terms of age and size, etc., etc. It would be the fight, but today's boxing doesn't necessarily always do that. It's clearly defined as an A side and a B side. Right. I have one other question for you. Jarrett Hurd fought a great, entertaining fight against Julian J. Rock Williams, and Hurd was the champ. J. Rock won the fight, and Hurd had the rematch clause, like any smart champion would, regardless of who you're fighting. Well, it was announced last week, I believe it was last week, that Jarrett Hurd is reneging. He says, I don't want to fight Williams. I find that fascinating. Here's a guy in Jarrett Hurd who's first of all, he was big junior middleweight. I never thought he was. I mean, he looked like one of those light heavies as a junior welterweight, super welterweight, junior middleweight, similar to what you were alluding to with Canelo earlier. And here he's turning down the fight. Why? If he can't make the weight, he's moving up. I mean, taking care of business used to be so important to fighters. If they lost the fight, the main thing on their mind was to avenge that loss and fight that fighter again. What's up? What's your thoughts? Why wouldn't Jarrett Hurd, and no disrespect to J-Rock, I mean, this isn't a guy that is oodles better than Jarrett Hurd. It was his night when they fought. But why wouldn't he want this rematch?
Well, I think because it ended up being a much harder fight than he expected. I think, he didn't want to just leap right into that rematch. It is interesting because that was one of the best fights of the year so far. So a rematch would certainly be enjoyable, or at least something I'd want to see. Jarrett Hurd is in a situation where he takes a lot of hard, clean punches. And
I know, and that's what I was just going to say. Every one of his fights are hard fights because he takes so many punches. So, I mean, there's got to be more to the story because, by him taking too many shots from J-Rock, I mean, it just there's something is not adding up to me.
Yeah, it could be that he needs some time off, but. Or it could be like a weight thing, like you said, or it could, this sport, Billy C., it could be a money thing. I mean, one of the things that I think that I did hear this week, I think it was Andy Lee, I heard on another podcast.
Hey.
One of the things he mentioned, that the reason why the Joshua Ruiz rematch is going to Saudi Arabia is that Joshua can win a boring decision there. and doesn't have the pressure of having to look sensational that he would if it was in the UK. If that's true, then this guy is broken mentally. I'm so fascinated about that fight, about that rematch. I really cannot wait for December 7th. I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there because I thought that was an interesting thing. I wondered what you thought.
I want to throw this out at you. Have you seen Anthony Joshua's girlfriend or wife or whatever?
No. Beautiful.
Oh yeah. Go punch that up. And I think that could be the very telltale reason of why maybe AJ is not so into boxing anymore. And maybe he just really doesn't care. I mean, there comes to a point when we have everything we absolutely positively want in life, and when you're that young and you have so much ahead of you, plus he's on every billboard. I mean, go check out his girlfriend, wife, whatever she is, and tell me if you think he really deep down cares. Why do you suppose he refuses to fly coach? There's got to be more to the story. AJ has become a bit of a diva, and it really surprises me because that was one of the reasons I loved him so much, because he did not appear that he was going to go down that path. The one thing I will say is he's been loyal to his trainer, although most people feel that it's time that his trainer reached the maximum potential and his lack of knowledge was exposed against Andy Ruiz. Eddie Hearn and other people just say he wasn't into it. He didn't train. He pulled a Mike Tyson in Tokyo deal. He was out partying, and he paid the price. But we'll see, because if he doesn't destroy Andy Ruiz, to win a boring decision, I don't care where it is, isn't going to be enough for him. He needs to knock out Andy Ruiz to win the fight like that, to make everybody say, okay, it was a fluke. Because if he doesn't, I wouldn't be surprised if people criticize the victory in any way, shape, or form. Even if he dominates, they'll still criticize. So, nah.
Yeah, I mean, not only does he have to win, but he has to exercise a lot of demons. You're absolutely right. So it's a big task.
Well, listen, I'll tell you another big task is me getting the camera to work on for you guys, and we may have to do a test before next show, so keep that in the back of your mind. But I'll be looking forward to you next week, brother.
Me too, Billy C. I'm going to go revive Joe Louis.
Yeah, man, he's totally out on his feet now, I see.
He's out. He's out.
All right, man, take care.
All right, take care.
That's Alex Palelli, and I promise everyone you'll be seeing his set and Dax's set and all of that stuff next week. So I'll be looking forward to that. But in any event, I just have a couple other things. I guess we're not getting an answer from Emily. I got to find out what's going on with her setup, because the same thing happened last time. It shows that she's ready, but I'm not able to connect. So we will fix that, and I will reach out to her, and we'll go from there. A couple of things I just want to mention real quick. In some news, Orlando Usyk, who was champion in the cruiserweight division, has made his jump official to the heavyweight division. He will be fighting October 12th. Against Tyrone Spong, and he will fight that fight. Spong is confident. He was a kickboxer. He feels he's one of the top heavyweights, even though he's only got 14 fights under his belt, but 13 coming by knockout. Usyk is 16-0 with 12 knockouts, all but one, I think, at the cruiserweight division. So that's taking place October 12th on DAZN. Some other fights. November, the DAZN will be broadcasting the World Boxing Super Series final in the bantamweight division. Naoya Inoue against Nonito Donaire, and in the that's for the WBSS, the World Boxing Super Series final. And then on the same card, Nordine Obuliai against Takumi Inoue. for the WBC's version of the bantamweight title. Inoue and Donaire each have one of the belts, the IBF and WBA, respectively. As far as the World Boxing Super Series on October 26th, that fight is the 7th, November 7th. On October 26th, it's was announced that Regis Prograis and Josh Taylor will be fighting in that final for the junior welterweight World Boxing Super Series belt. So we'll see that in the co-feature. Joseph Parker's taking on Derek Chisora, even though Derek Chisora recently didn't like what he was getting paid and felt he should be the main event. So keep your eye on that. As far as I know, it hasn't officially been canceled, but Derek Chisora has been known to do some crazy things anyway. Also on that card, Ricky Burns is back, and he'll be taking on former IBF featherweight champion Lee Selby. And in the cruiserweight division, Lawrence Oakley, undefeated, 13-0 and 10 knockouts, will be taking on Yves Nagabu, who's the European cruiserweight champion, 20-0 with 14 knockouts. Oakley is a good young fighter. He may be biting off a little more than he can chew in this one. I got some emails I wanted to read, and this first one is from my man Rick. Now, some of these, this went back to last week. He says, hey, Billy C., it's great to hear you back on the air. You know, we weren't technically off the air. We did take vacation. Then we had a bunch of technical issues. So I'm glad people were looking to have us back. I know one thing. A lot of people want the show back on a daily basis. The problem is, quite honestly, we need a major frontline sponsor to make that happen. So if you're one, or if you know one, send them my way, and we'll be back. We'll be back. Anyway, he says, I know Deontay's been out in the news lately, but I wanted to email you, excuse me, about the lack of support he gets, compared to the blind-ass kissery that Tyson Fury seems to enjoy. He says, he's talking about on the forums. He says, I wasn't always a big fan of Wilder either. He says, for many of the reasons you list on your show, and I agree, he needs to add some big names on his resume, and Luis Ortiz isn't going to cut it. But I've been coming around ever since his rematch blowout of Stavern a couple of years back, and I have to admit today that I'm a Team Bob Squad fan all the way. For one, I find it hypocritical of the U.S. fans who whined for a decade that we needed excitement in the heavyweight division and we needed a champ back in the States, and now we have one, and all those fans are running off to support Brits like Fury and Joshua. I agree, Wilder lacks elite boxing skill, but I don't remember anyone ever tuning in to see Mike Tyson for his boxing skill either, but he did have it, Rick. He says Wilder goes for the knockout every time, even when he's down on the cards late in fights. Speaking of Tyson, I think he's an interesting contrast to Wilder, as Tyson was notorious for being most dangerous in the first of 5 rounds compared to Wilder, who carries his power late into a fight, in addition to all of his first-round knockouts. Compared to his contemporary, Fury seems to be consensus number 1, despite having a record pretty much on par with Wilder's. I'll give AJ props as being the only current heavyweight to truly take on all comers, but Fury's best wins really just come down to Chisora and Klitschko, and the Klitschko fight was one of the worst fights I've ever seen. Downright shameful, if you ask me, for a champion to go out like that, and proof that Klitschko was only dominant because of his size advantage. The majority of Fury's career has been against guys like Otto Wallin and Tom Schwartz, and he actually gets praised for these fights for keeping busy. Not to give Wilder a pass, he needs to rematch Fury and pick up a couple of more wins like an AJ or a White. I think Wilder cracked Fury's armor in the first fight, and I think one more solid connect like that will finish Fury the next time. Lastly, I love that Wilder's been outspoken about being American champion. I thought it was really cool that he accepted an invite from President Trump when other athletes were making it trendy to boycott the White House. Guys like Steph Curry and Michael Bennett were made out to be civil rights heroes and had their asses kicked by the media, but Wilder showed up and stood right behind Trump, smiling into the cameras. I'd love to see Steph Curry or Bennett or Kaepernick or any of those guys try to step to Wilder and call him a sellout. I guess when you're the champ, you don't have to follow what's politically correct. or whatever everyone else is doing, you can stand up there on your own. I appreciate the email, Rick, and you make some great points. And I think Deontay's biggest problem was the fact that he didn't have a promoter, and he still doesn't have a good promoter. Deontay promotes himself, and some of his outrageous things that he says, I think, is kind of ruins it for him. Although I will admit he does have freakish punching power, but that's it. I think that he will beat Tyson Fury in the rematch, and I think he's got a good chance of knocking out Anthony Joshua should Joshua get by Andy Ruiz. So we will possibly see a guy like Deontay Wilder win the undisputed World Heavyweight Championship on power alone. It is what it is, and all that matters is whose hand is raised at the end of the fight. So you may be right. Thanks for the email. I got another email. This is from my man Steve Barr. Now Steve's on the other side of the pond, and he met up with us at a Billy C event on St. Simon's with Sal, and we love this guy. And he says, "Hey Billy, just thought I'd touch base with you. I've been distracted lately with work and family issues. All good stuff, but diverted me away from the sport for a while. I've caught up with a couple of your shows lately and tuned in to your post-Lomachenko-Campbell show. I didn't know too much about Campbell, even though he's a Brit. I agree with your summation and thought he acquitted himself well. He looked technically correct and kept his composure for quite a lot of the fight. But as you say, once he got caught with that body shot, he certainly wasn't the same. I agree with your analysis of Fury. He looked pretty uninspired throughout the fight and seemed to be going through the motions. I'd welcome your thoughts and opinion on Lomachenko and some other modern boxers who've received accolades anointing them as the best boxer of all time, an accolade attributed after boxing only a few fights compared to boxers from yesteryear. Although Lomachenko had hundreds of amateur fights, his professional record is short, around 15 fights. And looking at his opponents, I guess his management has also been very selective in who and when he fights, making sure he doesn't come up against an awkward, tough fighter who doesn't suit his style when possible. Back in the day, fighters had hundreds of fights before they even got a title shot and had to take on all comers, southpaws, scrappers, dirty wrestlers, brawlers, etc., anywhere, anytime. Don't get me wrong, Lomachenko looks excellent, probably the best around at the moment, although I really like Jose Ramirez. I love his all-action, non-stop, relentless style, meaning Ramirez. But I sometimes wonder if the best ever accolades stand up against the old-timers. I'd welcome your opinion on that issue. Also, he's still in touch with Ray Mercer, Marlon Starling, and Bobby Chez. I've exchanged texts with Ray occasionally, but have not kept up with Marlon and Bobby. I recently read that Bobby's going through a tough patch at the moment, so best wishes to him. He says, finally, just want to let you know that the boxing club, my grandfather, and Neil Tarleton, British featherweight champion and outright Lonsdale belt winner from the 30s, celebrates his 100th birthday next year in 2020. That is the Everton Red Triangle Boxing Club. An unbelievable feat throughout its history. It's always existed to help the poor and underprivileged kids in very poor district of Liverpool. It's going strong thanks to a family of good-hearted local people who give up their time for free to continue to help and keep the tradition alive. They have a great crop of professional fighters and will be running a show later this month in Liverpool. They're currently planning to hold a few events in Liverpool to celebrate its 100th birthday, and I'm working on them on ideas to support the celebration. They're working on sponsorship deals, so if they can manage to raise enough funds, maybe you can get to air a live show at the club. I'll keep you posted. First of all, I would love to be part of that and do our show. You know, Steve, we've talked about it. One of my goals was to do a live show in England. I think we fit well in England. As far as your thoughts on Lomachenko, the best ever, I'm not so sure. I don't like you. I think the only way to fairly give an accolade like that to a fighter is after they've retired and you can digest their career. To automatically anoint them while they're still active is not fair to anyone, not only them, but the past fighters. I do believe he is a special fighter. And I don't think in his case we look at the 15 fights. He came from a country that didn't offer professional boxing as an option. And to have the amount of fights and victories he had, is pretty amazing. And to see what he's accomplished as a pro and to see his talent on display in the ring is great. And as far as cherry picking, I'm not so sure that's a true statement about Lomachenko because Lomachenko has fought whoever would fight him. I know they are talking about I just recalled the fight that they're talking about Manny Pacquiao to fight Mikey Garcia. They're working on that. That's a decent fight because most of us would love to see Mikey Garcia against Lomachenko. Anyway, Lomachenko's a great fighter. As far as comparing the fighters of yesteryear, it's tough. I think the fighters today are better athletes than they were from years gone past. But I think as fighters, they were much tougher back then. And the sport was much tougher. And the fans were more knowledgeable. And they didn't, send a fighter off to pasture after he lost one fight like they do today. And I think that's the response, that's the fault of promoters and networks. The fighters of yesteryear were great warriors. The fighters of today are great athletes. They just don't fight the challenges. There was more pride back in the day. They wanted to prove that they were the best, and the only way they could prove it was fighting. They also had rivalries back then, town against town, city against city. Before anything else, you were a local champ. Then your local champ, your local status carried you to the next town or the next city or the next state, and you wanted to impose your skill on them. And those rivalries is what made boxing so great. And the fact that they used to fight each other more than once, that made boxing great. Those days are gone. Now they cherry pick and try to find the easiest way. And the most important thing for young fighters today is to keep their O intact. So great email from my man Steven. I hope all is well. And we'd love to come over to England. A couple other little quick news tidbits I want to throw you. Adrian Broner is being sued by a jeweler out of New York for $573,000. The gist of the story is apparently all the jewelry that you see on Adrian Broner isn't his. He rents it. Some of it's his and some of it he rents to look like he's clearly what he's not. But the catch here is that when he got called in to pay for it, he bounced a check for $443,000 to the jeweler out of New York and refuses to make good on it. So in the state of New York, that's a criminal charge. So we'll see what happens with that. But Adrian Broner, just what a total waste of talent. Going down the wrong thing, just thinking that he's above all the rules. And speaking about rules, how about Manny Pacquiao? I just mentioned that he's negotiating and talking about possibly fighting Mikey Garcia. But he also launched the first celebrity, because he is deemed a celebrity, in cryptocurrency called PAC tokens. And I don't know if you are up on cryptocurrency, but the most common, popular one is Bitcoin, where you actually pay real money and you get Bitcoin, and some vendors and services take the Bitcoin and they treat it as money. And right now it's a way that the governments aren't able to get a piece of it, which I'm sure will change. But if you invested in Bitcoin early on, you're making a lot of money right now if you still have it. But Manny Pacquiao launched his cryptocurrency called PAC tokens. Right now you can use it to buy Manny Pacquiao memorabilia or souvenirs and stuff like that. You could get discounts on buying tickets through him and all of that stuff. How it expands from there, I don't know. But what I think that he's getting accolades for being the first celebrity to do it. I see him tripping the governments to finally put some kind of clamp down on cryptocurrency. But anyway, hey, listen, we enjoyed you joining us today, and we'll look forward to you next time. And I promise the off-site cameras will be working. I said that last week, I know, But this time I mean it. Like Bob Arum said yesterday, I was lying. Last week I was telling you kind of a fabricated. But next time, it's going to happen because today I'm telling the truth. Hey, listen, I just want to remind everybody: make sure you tune in next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Until then, I'll leave you with this. Ciao, baby.